Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of the Fintech Hunting Podcast. We have a very special guest for you today. She is an industry trailblazer, a thought leader, extremely well respected for all that she does for the mortgage industry. Please help me welcome the amazing Susan Milazzo, CEO at the California Mortgage Bankers Association. Susan, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Michael, and thank you for that very warm introduction. I appreciate it.
Well, it is great to have you. Before we jump in and start talking about all the great things that the CMBA is doing, tell our listeners a little bit about your background and kind of how'd you get into the mortgage industry?
Sure. You know, it's funny. I've had this job since the early 2000s. And I've been around for so long and been through so many cycles that I think people think that I have a background in the mortgage industry and I kind of came from the mortgage industry. But that's not actually true. When I got this job, I knew to make my mortgage payment, and that was about it. I worked literally from the time I got out of high school. I worked in politics in California. So I got a job right out of high school in a clerical position for some political consultants in California. And that next year, they got hired to run the California headquarters for the Reagan-Bush campaign in 1984. So I got experience at the national level in politics at a very young age, probably too young to appreciate it. But my next decade of my life was all spent in politics in California. So I worked for some consultants for a while on various campaigns and initiatives. I went to work in the state legislature for a short time as a field representative in Northern California. And then I started at 25 because I thought I knew everything. I started my own business. Yeah, who would quit their cushy state job to start their own business? But it seemed like the right thing to do. And I was a political consultant doing fundraising for state legislators and candidates, a couple statewide candidates and some local officers in California. And that kind of segued into, so I raised money from lobbyists, district events as well, but lobbyists. And so a lot of my friends growing up in politics all lobbied for different associations. And when they knew what I did as far as raising money, they're like, hey, I've got an association client that needs some help. And what I really realized is that they didn't need help necessarily raising money in my fundraising skills, but they needed organization and they needed somebody to lead them. And so I kind of closed my political fundraising business and started an association management company. And the California MBA was one of my clients at one point. I just did some consulting for them. Some of the associations I ran, I did everything. My staff was their staff. We kind of, did all of their, advocacy work and events and whatnot. But I was just doing some consulting for the association. And I have to say, I immediately fell in love with the mortgage industry and all the people that I met. As we all know, everybody says it's very much a relationship business. And I just really connected with the people in the mortgage space, felt like I had a lot of synergy with them. I thought the same as they did. And I thought a few times, like, man, if I ever had a chance to run that organization, I would jump on that opportunity because those people are great. And I think that I could really do a lot. And then as the stars would have it, I was offered the job and closed my business and have been here ever since. So kind of a long answer to a short question, but that's how I got here.
What a wonderful journey, and we're so lucky to have you as part of the industry. So Susan talked to me about, we're still in a pandemic, but let's go back to the start of the pandemic. You're running an organization. A lot of what you do is a lot of face-to-face conferences, teaching, educational seminars. How do you flip the switch and deal with that as an organization and as an association during a pandemic?
Right. So nobody had a playbook for that, obviously. It was really, as we were, I was doing the same thing everybody was, right? Taking it all in, going, what is happening? How is this happening? How are we moving forward with all of this? I think the initial shutdown was right before our legislative day was supposed to happen in 2020, in March of 2020. So that's a smaller event. We realized that, it wasn't a possibility to do anything in person, so we did that virtually. But I'm thinking, there's just no way that by the time the summer comes around, I'm not going to be able to hold these amazing events. And we had some pretty big things set for 2020. I guess the first part of the pandemic was really kind of dealing all of the legislative issues and market issues that my members were dealing with. I mean, recall that, a lot of my members aren't large depositories. They are independent mortgage bankers of varying sizes. And as we all recall, that was very scary 6 weeks, the first impact of the pandemic and the market fluctuations and the margin calls. Really, a lot of my initial time was spent navigating how do I work with the National Mortgage Bankers Association, which, by the way, were champions for the industry during all the time, but especially during that time. I mean, my word. They were working tirelessly to work with federal regulators, the organization that manages investments that were, the investors that were initiating these margin calls and trying to navigate what's happening with the market. At the same time, our legislature in California, which is very active, full-time legislature, we're taking actions to really limit, on top of what was happening in the market conditions. They didn't really understand that, but limit, the ability for my members to provide access to affordable credit. So the initial few weeks of it, Michael, were really just a pummel of so many issues to deal with and to navigate through to make sure that my members were first safe and stable and could be, ongoing in their business. And then flip to what your question is about how we run the association. It became very clear to me that we needed to figure out how a virtual conference worked. I was very grateful that I've got an incredible team that immediately started researching all the options that were available to us. And we narrowed it down to a few vendors. I think that we picked a vendor that we felt would have the most connectivity and the most ability to network and to not only share information, but to connect with people, because that's what we want, right? These events are great for content. I'm very fortunate that we're a large state association. We attract some nationally recognized speakers on a regular basis.
Right.
And I'm always glad to provide that content, but it's really that ability to network with people and to say, hey, Michael, it's been a while since I've seen you. What are you doing? Let me tell you what I'm up to, kind of thing, get business done. So, we identified the right vendors, and I think a critical part was to reach out to our sponsors that are already committed to us and to say, look, we're all in this together. Everybody has to do this. We feel we picked the right partner to execute this, and we need your support to move this forward, and really kind of locked arms with our sponsors to make it all happen. And if you'd have told me 6 months before that I would be doing that, I would have not believed a darn word of it. But we pulled it off, and I think that I was very proud of the events that we did virtually. I think that there are some aspects of our experience holding those virtual conferences that we will employ in future events when it's appropriate to do so. But I do feel that our in-person events are really, really where we shine, and we can really provide the most value for our members.
Well, we'll get to the live events in a second, but I want to ask a few more questions. One thing in a statement first is I thought you guys did an exceptional job. Like you said, part of it is networking. Virtually, what I have seen is a lot of the content, in my opinion, actually, I thought got better. But trying to find ways to actually network, I was just at the Mortgage Bankers Association annual conference in San Diego. How many people do you run into going up the escalator, turning around your back from breakfast, a lunch, a dinner, walking from one event? Those opportunities are very hard to do virtually, but I thought you guys really incorporated some new technology, some new ways to do it, whether it was gamification and really getting people to use it. So what was technology's role in really trying to bring to life these virtual events?
Huge. Yeah. I mean, it is exactly that. It is utilizing all of the technology that's available to you. And, again, now we're all kind of steeped in it, but let's all flash back to what we were technology wise in, let's call it April or May of 2020, right? Some people were ahead of the game and some people weren't. And I was probably somewhere in the middle. And I talk more than I, implement technology at that point. But I think understanding, again, from my incredible team that put all the vendors together, understanding all the capabilities of that technology and then actually using them. So what we did, and I think it was important and allowed our attendees and our sponsors to make the most of the event, was we did a series of like demo webinars beforehand. Free, hey, just come in and we're going to walk you through the platform, the virtual environment, to show you how to utilize the networking abilities and how to promote yourself. If you are a sponsor, hey, here's how the virtual booth works. We had some companies that really hit it out of the park, so we used them as an example. Saying, look, here's what Incelerate did. They have a video on there. They have a great graphic. They've got some handout materials that you can have. You can schedule an appointment with them there. I think, I was very proud of the job that we did about educating people on how to use that technology, because there is a way to network. It's just not what is first thought for all of us. So
right.
if you take the time to really educate the people who are using the platform as to how powerful it can be and how you can accomplish what you need, I think it served us well.
I couldn't agree more. And I'm interested to see how you guys continue to incorporate those lessons learned, when you should use digital. There's going to be certain conferences that I think lend themselves very well to still having a lot of digital components. And now let's shift. You're back. We're doing some live conferences. There's still a pandemic going on. Tell me what it's like to start again in welcoming people back to these live events.
Boy, a lot of trepidation, right? I mean, for us, our first big event was our Western Secondary Market Conference, which was pushed back. It's typically in July. We pushed it back in August, as I think everybody did, to like the most ability, for us to be able to execute it in person. We also had a venue change. It's been in San Francisco for decades, and we moved it to the gorgeous Waldorf Astoria Monarch Beach Resort in Dana Point, Southern California. Spectacular, very special property, which we initially, wanted to launch in 20. So we went into it with, higher than the last in-person registration numbers, which was extremely encouraging. Record-setting sponsorship levels, also very encouraging. But to your point, Michael, all that doesn't matter until you get on site,
right? Because
it's how people are going to react, how they're going to embrace it. Are they going to be are they going to be comfortable in that environment? I think serendipitously for us, we chose a location that has a lot of outdoor space, a lot of outdoor opportunity for meeting. Our largest event is our all attendee party that we do on the first night, and that's all outdoors. So I think it gave people a lot more comfort in interacting with people after. I mean, for a lot of people, that was the first big event they'd been to in 15 months.
Exactly.
Some of them 18 months. And so I went into it with, I literally cannot describe the level of stress I was under then. But once it started rolling, we start out with a golf tournament, which is also at Monarch, which is spectacular if you're a golfer. And I think just seeing the big happy smiles on everybody's face and people being so happy to be back in person, it just kind of started really in the first few hours, just kind of lightening that stress level. And, we were extremely proud of our in-person events this year, and, look forward to being all in person in 2022.
Fantastic. And I agree with you. And I think those in-person events, what I found this year and the ones that I was able to attend, I thought the conversations were more genuine, more authentic. People took more time to actually engage and talk to the person. And it wasn't like some conferences in the past where it was just speed dating. How many appointments can I get? I got 20, I got 30. Can I hear 40 appointments, and just rushing from one to the other? people were really excited to see one another.
That's a great point. I hadn't really thought about that, but I think you are exactly right. It was a lot more genuine. You know, the meetings were, I think, I know some of my larger members, now that you're saying this is kind of jogging my memory, a lot of my larger members had told me, it's like, I'm going to be very specific in who I reach out to or who I accept meetings from, because I want to be able to really give them my time and my attention. So to your point, yeah, I think that was a big impact as well. Like, it's not the quantity necessarily, it would be the quality of those meetings that you have.
Absolutely. Well, now let's switch gears a little bit, something that's near and dear to my heart, which is mortgage innovation. And you guys rolled out Mortgage Innovators. And what I really want to talk about is not just it being an event, but how you've really transitioned to make it a community. Tell our listeners about that.
Sure. So probably, 5-6 years ago, I saw the need for us to incorporate some sort of technology event. And it took a few years to kind of figure out what exactly that would be. But in 2019, we launched the Mortgage Innovators Conference. And it was our first, kind of dip our toe into that type of offering as far as an event. And the goal was relatively simple. We wanted to be able to provide, because recall, I mean, we're a nonprofit organization that represents the independent mortgage banking community. Okay. Yep. So my goal in all of the things that we execute is to provide high quality content and opportunities for, education, networking for the independent mortgage banking community. So I wanted to provide, an event where we had a wide variety of technology solutions. I think when people initially, like 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago, talked about technology, it was all lead gen stuff, right? Yep. Well, now we have, we have morphed into, there is technology for, and it's only growing for every aspect of the life cycle of loan. And that's what I wanted to execute. I want an event where I can have an small independent mortgage banker come and see one-stop shopping for all the technology solutions they might be working with. And not only that, but how to incorporate those so they're not all working in silos. How are those tech stack integrations working, and how can I be better and more efficient at it? If you're a large depository, you can hire a department to do all of that.
Right.
But my members are small to mid-sized mortgage banks that don't have the time to do it. And so initially it was, the conference was structured to do just that. We wanted to have a lot of on-stage demonstrations. And if you saw a product that you liked, you could go into what we call the Innovation Lab, little kiosk, and say, hey, vendor ABC, I just saw you on stage. I want to talk with you about my company and how you can, help solve some of the issues that I'm having. Then, of course, we had to flip everything into virtual in 2020. Interesting, though, on the Mortgage Innovators Conference in a virtual environment, we had even more attendance. We had even more sponsors. We had even more people that wanted to be a part of this. So I thought, we are really onto something here. And what is missing in the industry is, as you say, kind of a community to talk about what's happening in technology in the mortgage space. So we launched at our virtual conference in 2020. In 2021, we launched the mortgageinnovators.com site, which is a 365 days a year, live and always being updated resource for technology. And it is, you can see it's bucketed out into different aspects of the life cycle of a residential loan, and different technology solutions for each of those aspects of the loan. We also have an ability to provide, white papers, content, lots of content for it. And, we have a podcast that we started for Mortgage Innovators to talk about, what is happening, what's hot in the market. And it's very exciting to be kind of in this position with what's happening in the technology space in the mortgage industry. I feel that my opinion is that I think that the financial crisis from the early 2000s really crippled the mortgage industry from adopting technology at the pace and the rate that other industries did. So we've had a lot of time to make up for. And I feel like we are now in a space where, technology is only growing, and it's such an exciting position to see all of the growth that's happening in that aspect of the industry.
Oh, absolutely. And it is a wealth of knowledge and expertise that is there. Like you said, there's case studies, there's white papers, the whole gamut of the mortgage life cycle is there. For those of you who haven't gone there yet or don't go there frequently enough, please do so. It is one of the best resources in all of the mortgage industry. If you want to stay abreast of what's going on in tech, how could you incorporate it? I love how you talked about the importance of it fitting into their tech stack and giving people real world examples. It's so very beneficial. And Susan, that leads me into my next question, because I think out of all the associations I work with, all of the different publications I've worked with, I truly have to say you guys do a phenomenal job of not only embracing your members, but any of your sponsors. They actually are a partner with you side by side. You work together so that it truly is a win-win-win. Tell our listeners about President's Club and some of the other sponsorship opportunities that you guys have.
Yeah, thank you. So our President's Council sponsorship is really something we always work to improve year to year, but it's started with the concept that there were a few companies that wanted to, be a part and have some exposure at multiples of our events throughout the year. So we came up with the President's Council sponsorship, which is you do need to be a member company. But it's an annual sponsorship where that company will have recognition not only at every one of our in-person events, including our major conferences all the way down to our networking events that we do throughout the year, which we're also bringing back, but also in all of our communications, every email that we send, they're recognized on our website. So it's a lot of exposure and an opportunity for us to thank those companies that have provided significant financial support for our association. Again, I like to remind people we are a nonprofit, and our goal is to represent the independent mortgage banking industry through advocacy, education, and connection. Advocacy being the cornerstone of what we do. So all the resources that we receive from President's Council kind of gets reinvested back into the mortgage industry. But we also incorporated a new President's Council webinar where I have, leaders in, the political scene in California kind of talking one-on-one with the small group. And I think that that's been really valuable. We've had leadership from our Senate and Assembly banking committees in California, also the CEO of the California Chamber of Commerce, really talking about what's top of mind for business in general in our state. So it's a great opportunity if any companies are interested in kind of having that more global exposure with our association who we're reaching out to.
And like I said, you guys do a phenomenal job. I know a number of people that are President's Council sponsors, and they get so much back in return for what you guys do, and it truly is a partnership. Tell me, what's in store for 2022 for the CMBA? What should we be on the lookout for? What should we be excited about? What's coming in 2022?
Oh, wow. I am very happy to announce that recently we have given our dates for our in-person Mortgage Innovators Conference that's happening in the beginning of May of 2022 in Anaheim. And we will be very soon launching, sponsorship opportunities, registration information. Again, going to make it extremely reasonable, almost free for lenders to attend, because I want my independent and mortgage banking lender companies, whether you're members or not, to attend and experience what we've got in store. This conference, Michael, is going to be next level, more than we've ever done before. It is really going to be have the high energy, a lot more use of technology on site, and just the presence and production of this conference that we are planning is truly exciting. And I think that if you have any interest in mortgage technology, this is definitely an event you do not want to miss. I'm very excited about launching that this year and getting more information out about that. Of course, we've got, the Western Secondary Market Conference is going to be right back at the beautiful Waldorf Astoria Monarch Beach Resort, as well as our Campak Golf Tournament that we'll kick off with. The tournament was sold out 7 weeks before the conference last year, so I assume something similar this year. And then we also have a commercial real estate finance conference that's happening in September in Las Vegas. So if you are in the commercial real estate finance space, we've got that event to launch as well. So I think those are our major events. We will also be bringing back, we've done one of our in-person networking events. So for those of you that are in California, prior to the shutdown, we had done a couple times a month these free regional networking events, after hour kind of mixers that were really popular. And so I'm very excited to be bringing those back in 22 as well.
Susan, so many exciting things. You and I could talk for hours about all of the great things that are happening. But first and foremost, thank you for all that you do and the impact that you're having on the mortgage industry. If our listeners want to find out more information, whether it's on President's Counsel, whether it's on some of the upcoming events, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Oh, best way is email, and it's very simple. It's susan@cmba.com. And I'm very responsive on email. So if you have any questions about not only our events that I've talked about, but we also launched a very robust diversity, equity, and inclusion committee this year. We've got webinars that we host, as well as we launched a podcast a few weeks ago. So lots of ways to be involved with our association.
And make sure you guys are listening to that podcast. They share great information, great insights. So thank you so much, Susan, for being a guest on this episode of the Fintech Hunting Podcast.
Thank you, Michael. It's been great.